Imagine for a second that you are looking out your window right now. You see your street, your neighborhood, maybe there's like a bustling city skyline in the distance.
Right.
The world as we know it is crowded, it's loud, and it's teeming with about 8 billion people. Now, I want you to imagine a very specific, a very immediate future where that number just drops.
Drastically.
Yeah, drastically. Not a gradual decline over centuries, but a complete plummet. Imagine the Earth's population shrinking to below 600 million people.
Wow.
It's a massive, unimaginable bottleneck for the human race. And in this scenario, your survival doesn't depend on, a reinforced bunker or off-grid survival skills or even a stock portfolio. It depends entirely on a unique type of currency that you hold.
Which is, frankly, it forces a total reevaluation of what we think is necessary to survive a catastrophe. I mean, if physical preparations are totally meaningless, the immediate question is what this currency actually represents, right? And who is controlling its distribution.
Yeah. Exactly, and that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to today's Deep Dive. We are unpacking a translated text from July 2022. It's titled A Brief Explanation of Lifechanyuan F-Coin. And it's authored by a figure named Shufeng.
Yes.
So our mission today is to look really closely at this single-source document. We want to understand how it constructs this highly specific blueprint for human survival, basically blending an apocalyptic cosmology with the deeply systematized concept of spiritual wealth.
Right. And before we dive in, it is important to just remind you, the listener, that our goal here is an impartial exploration of the belief system presented in this text.
Absolutely.
We're examining the intricate architecture of this worldview, just as we would, analyze a piece of historical literature or a sociological text. We are not endorsing these views. We're not validating the claims. We're simply analyzing the internal logic of the document and kind of exploring what it tells us about human meaning making, especially in the face of, massive existential anxiety.
Yeah, we're just looking at the blueprint here. And the document really does not waste any time establishing the stakes. The author, Shufeng, immediately diagnoses humanity with a fatal condition that he actually calls nearsightedness.
Nearsightedness.
Yeah. The text basically argues that when human consciousness is confined to pursuing immediate material benefits, like, the daily grind, financial disputes, the physical accumulation of just stuff, we are inherently sacrificing our future welfare.
I mean, the author is basically identifying a form of spiritual myopia by focusing entirely on material phenomena, which the text views as inherently fleeting anyway. Humanity has kind of blinded itself to an impending cosmic shift.
Right.
The text posits that a massive sorting mechanism is about to be activated in the not-too-distant future, and this is what leads to that massive population reduction you mentioned at the start.
And the urgency is just palpable in the writing. The text doesn't place this event thousands of years away.
Yeah.
It frames it as an imminent reality. And the sorting mechanism is entirely binary. You either face destruction or you survive.
Yeah, there's no middle ground.
No middle ground at all. And if you face destruction, the text asserts that your consciousness will be reincarnated into the animal world.
And on the flip side, if you survive, you are granted the opportunity to coexist harmoniously with nature and eventually ascend to the heavenly kingdom. But the determining factor for, which side of that binary you land on is strictly based on the amount of spiritual and soul wealth you possess.
Okay, so
the true wealthy individuals of this impending future, they won't be billionaires with massive physical assets, They will be those who have accumulated this specific type of soul wealth.
I picture this as like a cosmic filter. You have 8 billion people pouring into a funnel, and only the ones holding the right spiritual currency actually make it through the tiny opening at the bottom.
That's a good way to visualize it.
But if material wealth, physical assets, and cash mean absolutely nothing to this sorting process, how does someone actually accumulate this soul wealth?
Well, the mechanism relies on a really sharp, basically non-negotiable division between consciousness and worldly phenomena. So their author argues that everything we consider material is just a temporary illusion.
Temporary illusion, right?
Yeah, and true advanced beings, which are the entities the text suggests manage nature and the cosmos, They possess a consciousness that is entirely uncontrolled by these worldly phenomena.
So it's an extreme form of psychological and spiritual detachment.
It is, yeah, very extreme. If your consciousness is tethered to material wealth, to societal status, or even just like everyday interpersonal disputes, you are anchored to phenomena that are destined to be destroyed.
Wow.
So accumulating soul wealth means elevating your consciousness so profoundly that it essentially operates on the exact same frequency as those advanced beings. You are basically proving that you are no longer bound by the physics and the economics of the material world.
But wait, if humanity is facing this massive apocalyptic reduction based on consciousness, it kind of begs the question, what is happening to the physical stage we're standing on? Like, is the Earth itself collapsing? Are we looking at a planetary destruction event alongside this population drop?
That's where this cosmology takes a very different turn from typical, doomsday narratives. The text explicitly states that the Earth is not ending. It actually claims the planet has a lifespan of 5 billion years remaining.
Wait, 5 billion years?
Yes.
So the physical planet is completely fine. The crisis is entirely anthropocentric.
Exactly. The crisis is a planetary cleansing, not a planetary destruction. The text posits that nature is actively managed by advanced beings governed by really strict, unyielding laws. And it states the Earth will not disappear unless it approaches something the author calls the long axis of the Taiji ellipsoid.
The long axis, the Taiji ellipsoid. I mean, that phrase is just a wild collision of vocabularies. You have Taiji, which evokes, ancient Taoist philosophy, the supreme ultimate, the interplay of yin and yang.
Right.
And then it is just fused with ellipsoid, which is a highly technical geometric and astrophysical term for like a stretched three-dimensional sphere.
It is a very deliberate choice, though. By combining a deeply mystical concept with a term you would literally find in an orbital mechanics textbook, the author is manufacturing a very specific type of authority.
Oh, that makes sense.
Think about it. If you just say the end of the spiritual cycle, it sounds like a religious belief that can be debated. But if you invoke the geometry of an ellipsoid, it sounds like an incontrovertible mathematical law. This pseudoscientific jargon kind of physically alters the reader's perception, making the cosmology feel like objective science rather than subjective theology.
It creates this sort of impenetrable wall of authority.
Exactly.
But, okay, if the Earth is far from this Taiji ellipsoid and therefore totally safe, the text has to explain why humanity is being purged. And the document says that to maintain the healthy operation of Earth's life, there's a need to remove the, and I'm quoting here, tumors that damage Earth's life.
Yeah, that clinical terminology is heavily deployed to justify the severity of the coming reduction.
And I understand the internal logic they're using here within the text. But historically, whenever a group labels human beings as a disease or a tumor on the body politic, it usually precedes extreme isolationism, dehumanization, or much worse.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you label someone a tumor, you are ethically bypassing their humanity. Is the text aware of how dangerous this rhetoric is, or is it completely insulated within its own worldview?
It appears to be completely insulated, operating on the core premise that the physical body is totally secondary to the state of the consciousness. So within the logic of the text, avoiding classification as a tumor isn't about physical health. It's not about genetic purity. It is entirely about proving you are a healthy, contributing part of the Earth's spiritual ecosystem.
So the disease is just a metaphor for being too attached to the material world.
Essentially, yes. The source states that human behavior is controlled by consciousness. You become a tumor when your consciousness is hyper-focused on material greed and that nearsightedness we talked about.
Right.
If your consciousness is pure and untethered, you are a healthy cell. If it is mired in worldly phenomena, you are a tumor threatening the host planet, and the advanced beings will perform basically a surgical excision to save the Earth. The rhetoric is extreme because the perceived threat to the planet is viewed as extreme.
Which brings us to the operational reality for the follower. The survival depends entirely on this abstract concept of having an untethered consciousness. How is that actually measured? I mean, I can't look at a dashboard to see how untethered my soul is on a given Tuesday.
No, you can't.
And this is where the entire document pivots to its titular subject, the Lifechanyuan F-coin.
Right. The abstract philosophy suddenly demands a highly specific measurement. The F-coin is introduced as the direct, tangible indicator of a person's spiritual and soul wealth.
And the text is incredibly literal about this. The more F coins you have, the wealthier you are in this post-Purge spiritual paradigm.
The text literally states the amount of Lifechanyuan F coin one possesses signifies the amount of spiritual and soul wealth one has. It is positioned as an exact one-to-one correlation.
It functions almost exactly like a spiritual frequent flyer program. You accumulate these F coins, and the balance literally dictates your tier of paradise. Like the text outlines very specific destinations based on this currency.
Yes, accumulating F coins streamlines entry into the human paradise, which the text refers to as the second home. And if a follower accumulates enough of this wealth, it eventually grants entry into the primary paradise, designated as the 1,000-year world.
It's literally a tiered loyalty program for the afterlife. Tier 1 gets you into the second home lounge, and like platinum status grants access to the 1,000-year world.
Yeah,
And while that's an analogy, the transactional nature of this is just staggering.
And this reveals what is arguably the central paradox of the entire document. The text spends its opening paragraphs passionately arguing that material things are fleeting, that worldly phenomena are an illusion, and that true advanced consciousness is completely untethered from the material world.
It demands total detachment from economics.
Yet, to measure this profound detachment, the author relies entirely on a highly material construct, an F coin, an indicator of wealth,
Yeah.
an accumulated balance.
Wow.
The text quantifies the unquantifiable. It takes the ultimate spiritual achievement, total detachment from worldly economics, and it gamifies it using the exact language and structure of worldly economics.
It is the ultimate irony. To prove how much you transcend capitalism and material obsession, here is your anti-materialism credit score.
Precisely.
It relies on the very framework it is trying to escape. And this paradox becomes just undeniably clear when we examine the physical anatomy of the F coin. The document gives us an 11-point list of what makes up this coin, and it reads like a design specification for a national banknote.
The detail provided in those 11 components is extraordinary. It illustrates how the abstract theology is forced into a bureaucratic mold to make it feel real and authoritative to the follower.
Let's actually break down how these components function psychologically.
Yeah.
Maybe starting with the bureaucratic elements. Points 1, 10, and 11 are purely administrative. The F coin has a specific amount, a serial number, and the name or code of the F coin holder. We are talking about literal serial numbers for soul wealth.
Well, a serial number implies a vast, highly organized database. It suggests that the advanced beings aren't just observing humanity vaguely from above, they are meticulously tracking individual balances in some kind of cosmic ledger.
Oh, like an audit.
Exactly. And this taps into a deeply human reliance on bureaucracy. If salvation has a barcode and a serial number, it feels official, it feels guaranteed.
Then there are the visual components that seem designed to project global and universal authority. So component 2 describes the visual field, where the shaded area depicts a flat map of the Earth. Component 5 is the symbol of the second home, and component 8 is the logo for the Lifechanyuan International Family Organization. It is heavily, heavily branded.
The branding definitely aligns the organization with a planetary scale. But the visual authority goes much further in component 2, which includes portraits of major historical guides. The lineup includes Jesus Christ, Buddha Shakyamuni, and Immortal Laozi.
The syncretism there is incredibly bold. You have Christianity, Buddhism, and Taoism just stacked onto one token. And then crucially, component 4 includes a photograph of the Lifechanyuan founder and author of the text, Shu Feng, placed right alongside them.
Yes, by placing his own image alongside the most recognized spiritual figures in human history, the author is making an immense theological claim without actually having to argue for it.
Yeah, it's implied.
The visual proximity alone transfers the authority of Jesus, Buddha, and Laozi directly onto the founder.
It is a really jarring psychological blend. You have the faces of global spiritual icons printed next to a serial number and a bureaucratic code name, all under the banner of a specific organizational logo.
And the textual elements printed on the coin reinforce this blend of the sacred and the literal. For instance, component 1 states the purpose of Lifechanyuan: revering God, revering life, revering nature, and following the way of nature. Component 3 offers a brief explanation of spiritual wealth.
Okay, so that sounds pretty standard.
But then component 9 strips away any ambiguity, explicitly defining the nature of the F coin as a heavenly kingdom wealth coin.
A heavenly kingdom wealth coin. It just refuses to let go of the literal transactional language. But then, sitting right in the middle of this bureaucratic branded ledger is component 7, is a piece of poetry called the Chanyuan Grass Aspiration.
The shift in tone here is critical. The poetry serves a very specific psychological function within the design of the coin.
Yeah, let me read the poem. It reads, opening windows to the sun and moon, looking at green distant mountains, gaining life in the Chanyuan, and having spirituality that exceeds the norm.
Hmm.
It evokes this deeply peaceful, agrarian, almost meditative state. You can almost feel the breeze coming through the window. But why place a poem about distant green mountains right next to a serial number and an account balance?
Think about the emotional state of a follower reading this text. They have just been told that the population will plummet to under 600 million people, and that those who fail will be reincarnated as animals or destroyed as tumors.
That's terrifying.
Right, the psychological baseline is immense existential terror. So the F-coin serial numbers provide the cold, structural guarantee of safety, but the poem acts as an emotional release valve. It is the carrot to the apocalypse's stick. It offers a tangible sensory promise of the peace and natural harmony they're allegedly purchasing with their spiritual wealth.
Oh, wow. So it basically provides emotional regulation for the anxiety that the text itself just created?
Exactly.
When you view all 11 components together, like the serial numbers, the historical icons, the logos, the poetry, you see a highly engineered psychological tool. It is designed to be a tangible anchor for an intangible hope.
Which perfectly sets up the ultimate promise the text makes to the holder of the F-coin. The author writes, "When you possess the Lifechanyuan F-coin, a divine lamp will rise in your heart. This lamp will illuminate your path forward. Follow the light and you will reach your dream destination."
In a future that is predicted to be overwhelmingly chaotic and uncertain, this coin offers absolute, unquestionable certainty. It is a roadmap and a guarantee completely bound up in an 11-point design specification.
It really reveals how human belief systems operate under the weight of existential dread. When faced with the vastness of the universe or an uncertain future, humans do not naturally embrace ambiguity. We crave structure.
Yeah, we really do.
We construct detailed, quantified frameworks to cope. We want to know the rules, we want to know the authorities, and we want the exact serial number on our ticket to safety.
We just want to categorize and quantify the unknown so we can feel like we control it.
Yeah. And the author leaves the reader with a stark directive for navigating the transition into this new world. He advises, remember, let the dead deal with the affairs of the dead.
Which is a call for total, radical detachment from the collapsing material paradigm. Basically, cut ties with the old world entirely.
Right, but then he immediately follows that call for detachment by ending the document with a highly transactional wish. I wish you to become a super wealthy individual in terms of spiritual and soul wealth.
A super wealthy individual. The language always snaps right back to the accumulation of wealth.
Always.
And this brings me to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over as you go about your day. We started this deep dive imagining a world where survival depends on a unique currency. A world where you are trying desperately to escape the trap of nearsighted material obsession. The text explicitly warns against being controlled by worldly material phenomena. It demands pure, untethered consciousness as the only way to avoid becoming a literal tumor on the planet. Yet, to measure this profound detachment from the material world, the system offers a deeply detailed 11-component token, complete with serial numbers, logos, and account balances.
It's quite the paradox.
It is. Does the very act of tracking your spiritual salvation through a transactional gamified coin system accidentally anchor you right back into the exact material mindset you are desperately trying to escape? If your ticket out of the material world relies on an account balance and a serial number, have you really left the material world behind at all?
That's a great question.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.